So Google just announced what might be a Lovable, Figma Make and V0 killer. It was a little bit under the radar announcement at this year's Google I/O 2025, and it comes off the back of Google acquiring a company called Galileo AI, which is an AI user interface design tool that they've relaunched at I/O this year as Google Stitch to directly compete with the likes of Lovable, V0, Bolt and Figma Make. And so today I want to take you through Google Stitch, see if it's any good, see how it compares to these other AI coding tools, and whether you should use it or not. If you don't know me, my name is Chris, and for the last 15 years I've been designing apps and advising startups on product and design, and I believe the next wave of incredible businesses is going to be built using these AI tools. And with that said, let's get straight into Google Stitch and see what it can do.
Build great products. Build great products.
So this is Google Stitch. As you can see, it's pretty familiar to people who have used Galileo AI before in its latest version. You have some examples of some designs on the left, which you can kind of see maybe this is from people who work at Google. It's like board game, club planner, homemade pizza cooking, elite class. I can imagine that's the sort of thing that Googlers like to do. No offense, I like to do that stuff as well. And in the top right here, you've got the mode that you're designing in. So you've got standard mode, which is with Gemini 2.5 Flash, which is to quickly edit themes, and you can export from Google Stitch to Figma, which is one of the key kind of unique selling points of Google Stitch. And you can also use experimental mode, which is more high fidelity designs with Gemini 2.5 Pro, and you can use an image for inspiration in that one. So in standard mode, you can't use an image for inspiration. You're just kind of prompting it to create something. Whereas experimental mode, you can actually use that reference to try and create something. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to try and create 3 different types of design. I'm going to create something simple, something complex, and I'm going to try and create a mobile app design in Google Stitch as well. And it's also worth mentioning that you can export all the code from here, so you can still put all of that code into another AI coding tool of your choice. If you want to take that code from Google Stitch, put it into Cursor and actually build a more complete app. But I feel like this is more directly competing with tools like V0 and Figma Make, which are really intended as prototyping tools, not as tools to kind of create that final app and that final product. So let's see what Google Stitch can do. I'm going to go through my first simple design example here, and I'm just going to describe in standard mode what I would like Google Stitch to create. So one thing I'm going to do here before I go straight into Google Stitch actually is to create the prompt for Google Stitch, and I'm going to do this in ChatGPT, and I'm going to do this in the way that I usually would, almost using ChatGPT as my prompt engineer. So ChatGPT will create the prompt, and what I'm going to do, because I can't drop images into Google Stitch in the standard mode, I'm actually going to drop my reference image into ChatGPT and ask it to describe that image for me so that I can then use that detailed design description back in Google Stitch to give me a better, hopefully a better result when it actually builds the website. So the examples that I'm using today to build these websites and these apps in Google Stitch is this one for my simple website design, which is Reweb. So maybe there's like more complex animation on here, but the layout is pretty straightforward. It's these standard kind of elements. You've got like tabbed sections, you've got more like bento box kind of testimonial sections, you've got an FAQ, you've got pricing. These are all like fairly straightforward, standard. You've got hero section, standard like components for a website. So I'm going to put my screenshot of that website into ChatGPT alongside this prompt, asking it as a prompt engineer who's built multiple products to give me a prompt that I can use to recreate this website for, and I'm going to do it for an AI powered crypto wallet app, which is something that I've done before, which will just hopefully give me a very straightforward landing page. And I've asked ChatGPT here to explain the content that's in each section on the page and to give a detailed description of the design style, and that should hopefully give me a good prompt to put into Google Stitch to get a decent result. So ChatGPT has given me the prompt for this website. It's also included a tech stack. I'm not going to include that because I think Google Stitch will just figure itself out. It's got all of the different sections on the page and the content they include, and it's also got the design style and the theme, and the prompt is here. So let's copy that over to Google Stitch, put it in here. It looks a bit garbled, but I'm sure it'll be fine. and we've selected web down here, and then let's say generate designs and see what it comes back with. Quick break in the episode to talk about my community for product builders who actually want to make a profit from what they're building. If you're building a product, whether that be a SaaS tool, a web app, an iOS app, or an Android app, and you actually want to make a profit, then this is the community for you. It's called the Product to Profit Academy. I'll be sharing courses, tutorials, tips, and all of my frameworks that I've learned over the last 15 years of working with startups and advising startups on product and design in my Product to Profit blueprint, so that you can benefit from everything that I've learned when you're building your product. So if you're building something and you actually want to make a profit from it, head over to buildgreatproducts.com/profit to sign up to the waitlist. We're launching soon. That text looks horrendous. Just to mention, as I've mentioned in other videos on similar tools, one of my pet peeves with AI tools like this is when they don't tell you how long roughly it's going to take. And so this is also doing that here. I've been waiting maybe about 5 minutes so far, but with no indication of how long this is going to take. I can't really go off and do something else. And if I did, I might miss what it was creating. So adding that in would be super, super useful. So Google Stitch didn't like my crazy non-formatted ChatGPT prompt for the simple landing page, so I've just asked ChatGPT to simplify that a bit, and I'm going to put that back into Google Stitch and see what it can do. Now it's not formatted, but it should still work. It's a lot simpler prompt here, so we'll see what it can generate. I just got an error when I tried to do the last one that it couldn't do it. It might be because the previous prompt mentioned some technologies that it should be using, and maybe that it was a bit confusing for Stitch to kind of interpret, so we've just kept it really, really simple, and let's see what it can do. Okay, so I've got a design back here, but it's pretty terrible, so I'm actually going to try just not using ChatGPT for the prompt, and I'm just going to write it out myself and ask Google Stitch to create something here. So let's see how it can handle that instead, because this design here is terrible. So I've just written out a very simple prompt here, which is create a landing page for the AI-powered crypto wallet app that is dark mode with purple and blue accents and gradients, uses glass morphism for the cards and an overall modern and clean look and feel, common of startups. For the page sections, I want a hero section, how it works, testimonials, our mission, pricing, FAQ sections, along with a footer and sticky navigation that blurs the page behind it. So we've generated our first design here that actually looks like a full landing page. This is okay. It's okay. It's not amazing. It's sort of done what I described in the thing here. Obviously it doesn't have any images to it has images that it's generated to use here. It's got these images of the people that have testimonials. Not a huge fan of this layout of the testimonials. There's not enough spacing in between sections on the page. It feels a bit basic. This is off, like the alignment of that is off. If you're looking for like a rough starting point to kind of pull this into Figma and then design something a bit more detailed, you could do that. Also, obviously I can go back and forth with this to try and improve the design here as well. The one issue with the standard mode is that I can't attach images for it to make these designs any better, and I would say the best way of using these AI coding tools from my point of view is when you can attach references that it can work from, because most of the AI models work really, really good when you're using great references, and that's one of my top tips for getting the best quality design output from AI coding tools. So I think we're going to leave this one here. I'm going to go back, I'm going to try the experimental mode where it's going to give us the option to upload an image here. We're going to try doing something that's a little bit more complex to see what it comes back with, and then after that we're going to try building an app flow. So let's put in the reference and create the prompt for this more complex website that we're going to design. So I tried to attach my big reference image of this website here, which was a full screenshot of the full website, and it actually wouldn't go into Stitch because the file size was too big, but I didn't get a message that the file size was too big. It just simply didn't upload. So what I've done here instead is I've just taken screenshots of this website and I'm going to put them into Stitch individually, so we've got multiple screenshots that it's referencing, and hopefully that way we can build a bit more of a complex design here and get something that's a bit higher quality. Another one of the drawbacks here with Stitch is that you can only attach one reference image. Now maybe they're doing this just to preserve kind of capacity, just considering they've just launched this, and there is some messages coming up around a lot of people trying to use this at the moment. So maybe that's why, but I would still say, like, one of the things that you would expect from tools like this is to be able to upload multiple reference images along with assets that you want to add on the page as well. And so that is definitely an area where Stitch falls down versus the competitors. I'm going to add the prompt in here. I've just selected one image, one screenshot of this page that I've taken to see if it can kind of follow the style, which was of this section. So we'll see if it can create a website based on that image and follow that kind of design style and see what happens. So I'm just going to give it a really vague prompt this time and actually just keep it super simple and not even tell it like what content I want it to do, and just say do it in the exact style of the attached image and create a website for a directory of the best AI tools for entrepreneurs. And then I'll let it kind of fill in the rest of the context, how many pages it should build, what that style should be like, and we'll get a sense of how close is it going to match that style of the attached image that I've put in there, and how much content is it going to flesh out here, and what sort of things is it going to add. So whilst that's loading, there is one thing that I do want to show you here, which I do think is pretty useful. It's this copy to Figma functionality. So what you can essentially do with these designs, so I'm going to go from this design, I'm going to click copy here to Figma and then close that. And then if I come over to a Figma file here, I can literally just paste it and that will put it into Figma. And I can come in here and you've got your auto layout on some of these sections that's been created. It's all based on the design that you created in Google Stitch. So that I can see as being super useful if you're prototyping something quickly and you want to quickly pull that idea into Figma to then add that to your other designs, or to rebuild it in your own design system for products that you're working on. I can see the value of that massively. But really, I think the quality of the output of Google Stitch needs to improve significantly based on this to be close to any of the other models. But we'll see what it can create when it comes back with the complex website design and with the app design that we're going to put into it, just to kind of compare versus other tools. So at this point, Google Stitch was actually taking way too long to load because there was just so many people using it. So I decided to go on to the third design first and then come back the following day to check out what it had created for me. So what I want to create next is an app design in Google Stitch, and what I want to reference here is Duolingo, but I'm going to try and create an app design in the style of Duolingo, but for people who have app ideas and want to start their own business. So people who are building apps in AI coding tools, they might want to launch a startup, that sort of thing, to do a kind of gamified learning journey in a mobile app in a similar style to Duolingo. So what I'm going to do here is I've gone over to mobbin.com, which you can use as a reference if you're building mobile apps. It's a great place to start. It's got thousands and thousands of images of flows across tons and tons of different mobile apps, and you can literally just copy them to your clipboard and then paste them directly into the AI coding tool that you're using. Obviously, because for Stitch you can only paste in one image at the moment, we're going to try and choose the closest image to the thing that we want to create, which I think for me is going to be, I want to get more into like this kind of gamified stepped learning journey here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, and because this is a little bit more complex as well and a little bit more UI heavy, it might be interesting to see how Google Stitch puts this together. So I'm just going to copy this one because this has a little tooltip on it as well that is kind of related to this step. So I'm going to cut, and it has some completed steps and some incomplete steps. I'm going to see, I think this combines a few different elements here, which might be quite good. So let's start with that one, go back to Google Stitch, and then I'm going to paste that into here. Okay, you can't paste into here, which is what you can usually do on these fields on the majority of other AI coding tools. So again, that's just an area where Google Stitch is falling down a little bit. So I'm going to save that image and then attach it here instead. So I've attached my image there and I've just put in the prompt here, create an app flow for a learning app in the style of Duolingo, and the attached reference image, create a gamified learning journey, teaching aspiring entrepreneurs how to build apps with AI and launch them as businesses. So this is on the mobile mode here and we're in experimental so that we can can use the image reference. So let's click generate and see what it comes back with. So I'm back the following day. Hopefully the number of people using Google Stitch has died down a little bit now. We can see in the top left here that it's created the things that I asked it to do yesterday. So let's go through the more complex web design first on the experimental mode using that image. So if I go into this one here, so this was using this image as a reference. So you can see you've got this kind of asymmetrical layout with images, and it's kind of like planets and space stuff. And there's also these kind of references in monospaced font that are using like monospaced titles, and then like a sans serif font here, and then like a large headline overlapping some of the other elements with these kind of references that relate to these points, these references that are on the right hand side. Now it's not the best reference that I would want to put into this if I'm building a complex website. I would actually want to put in like a larger screenshot of a website, or I would want to put in multiple screenshots. But we already know here that Google Stitch is limited in terms of the amount of reference images that you can use. You can only use one on the experimental mode. Again, maybe they're doing that to save bandwidth for now. Ideally, you would want to put in multiple references here to get the best output. And you can see from what it's created here that it's got like some of those elements pretty good. So it's got like the theme of the page here. It's got these kind of space like imagery kind of elements, and it's got this text on the left hand side with these references that relate to the points in the text. So it's done that detail really well. Underneath that, so it's kind of got that section that I reference really well. What it's not done so great here is it's not really built the style out around that to match it very well. It's kind of gone very, very colourful for the rest of the sections here. So you've got a navigation at the top here, you've got this Discover Tools section about AI tools. I might try and prompt this just to see if it can get closer to the style of this section, and also to see how it responds to prompting change in the chat once you've actually done something. I'm also not sure what these little squares are on the corners of the images and where it's got that from. It's obviously picked up that there's the intercom thing on the screenshot that I put on there, and it's added a little chat thing which is sort of randomly located over the top there. So there's definitely things I would want to change here. So let's try and prompt it to make some larger changes, and then obviously if you were designing a website you could just copy this straight into Figma. Okay, so you can't, if you upload a reference image on experimental mode, you can't export to Figma. So that's another thing where I think this falls down a bit, and it doesn't quite match on the use cases for this product. I feel like if I'm doing something a bit more detailed and complex, I'm probably more likely to be a designer who's using a tool like Figma. And so it seems mismatched that the standard mode, which is quicker and doesn't use reference images, is the one that allows you to bring it into Figma. And the experimental mode, which is more complex and allows you to use reference images, it doesn't let you take it into Figma. So that feels a little bit mismatched to me. So let's prompt this to see if it can make some changes. So I've asked it to make a bunch of changes here, change the blue headings to white, change the buttons to more of a glass morphic style. So I want to see how it responds to design terminology with a subtle 3D effect, change the labels to white with a low opacity. I want to add another section to the page. So I'm going to see if it can add another section on this page and make some of the elements smaller and change the styling slightly. One other thing that I wanted to mention on this more complex one is that I asked it to create a website for a directory of the best AI tools. Now, it hasn't really given me a best practice directory layout here. It's kind of just created a few basic sections. So what I would expect on a directory website is much more than this. I would expect there to be the categories of AI tools here. I would expect there to be maybe recent AI tools, and I'd also expect there to be a little bit more information on each of these tools on the cards as well, around maybe the website or when it was launched or what the rating of that might be. So it's kind of missed a few elements here, and it's done like quite a basic job. So I would say in terms of comparison to other tools, I would say that other tools are better at using the context of what you're asking for to build out something a bit more complete if you don't give it the full instruction. So if I did this in Lovable, for example, it would probably pull together a more accurate and best practice following directory website and also build out a few more pages, because I did ask it to include a homepage, listing page, and a page design for each tool here, but it's just done the one landing page. So let's send the amends off, see what it comes back with, and have a look. Okay, I don't know what this has done, but something weird happened here where it said that it's updated the website with the following changes, but what it's done is something very strange that almost looks like a website out of 1995. Like, it's actually really low resolution in this view, which is strange, and if I click in I can see a bit higher resolution, but it's so weirdly laid out. I'm not sure what's going on here. It's added AI tool categories, it's obviously changed the headings to white, it hasn't changed the labels to what I wanted. I don't know what this image is, but that's been generated by something. And it's also just like, it's like a plain text website, which is very strange. Some of these, like, that's not too bad. It's okay, the image. Obviously the text here is not as good as what you would get on ChatGPT image or other AI image generation tools. So let's try and prompting it to improve the design of this page, because it's changed loads more than I asked for, and let's see what happens. So what I've done here is I've asked it to update the entire page style, but I've asked it to keep the content the exact same. So that's one of my top tips for using these AI coding tools, is to tell it what you don't want it to do as well as what you want it to do. If I just tell it to change the style of the page to something that's modern and that a tech startup might use, it might actually change the page content to be a made-up tech startup, because it kind of gets confused with some of that context sometimes. So I'm going to say keep the content the exact same. Let's send this off and see what it comes back with. So I don't really know what's happening here, to be honest. It hasn't updated the page style at all, based on what I've said. It said the website style has been updated to a more minimal, modern and clean design suitable for a tech startup, but it's removed a load of the content, even though I said keep the content the exact same. So this is like not responding well at all to my prompts after the initial creation, which is not great. In this situation, I would be tempted just to start over from scratch, which is not what I wanted to do. So let's jump over to the app design example that I was pulling together. So the video might be a bit disjointed because I did some of this yesterday and I'm doing some of this now today. So I put in this prompt yesterday, which is earlier in the video, which is saying create an app flow for a learning app in the style of Duolingo and the attached image for a gamified learning journey teaching aspiring entrepreneurs how to build apps with AI and launch them as a business. And I asked it for an app flow. What it's done here is created one app screen, and it kind of goes longer than this bottom tray here. So obviously I could pull that into Figma. Oh no, I can't because I used the reference image. Okay, so obviously I could pull that into a different coding tool and tell it like this needs to be attached to the bottom, and also the height of this is too big for a mobile, and I want it to just scroll to show that extra information. It's also, we've got module 1, unit 1, intro to AI app building. It's obviously done these like a little bit like Duolingo style. It's generated an image for this with a few stars. It's okay. And it's got like the app tray here with learn. Learn has a home icon, which is weird. Practice, challenges, resources, which has a shop icon, which I'm not sure about, and profile. It's okay. It's like very average, and maybe I'm giving it too much credit here as well. I would never use this really in anything. Like, maybe it's a good starting point if you really have no clue about what you want to create, but to be honest, other options do a much better job. And so what I want to do here, now we've got this one screen, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask it to create a couple of other screens, see again if it can do more than one screen extra here, and just see if it kind of actually follows the instruction that I give it. This is now starting to look a little bit better, this screen that it's created here. Well, one thing to note is that, and I don't know if this is maybe just a limitation with Stitch. I've seen on the video, you've seen on the trailer video for Stitch that it has these multiple screens laid out on this like a canvas. Now this actually isn't a canvas. Like, I can't scroll around the canvas, I can't drag around the canvas or zoom out. I can only click on that design. And I've asked it to add in the practice screen and the challenges screen as extra screens. That was my assumption of what it would do anyway. That's what it would do if you were building it in a different tool. And it says that it's generated the practice and challenges screen, but it's just generated the practice screen, and it's actually changed the entire app tray. So again, you need to tell these AI tools what not to do. But if it starts it's changing so much here, you almost can't tell it everything not to do. You kind of would expect that it's going to have enough context to know what not to change. And that's where some of these other AI tools are actually really good already. So I've got here a practice tab, but under practice is practice and challenges, which is a weird kind of UX. And again, it's changed these tabs down the bottom. These look better. These look like phosphor icons. I'm just recognizing the icon set. And you've got practice exercises here. Okay, it's fairly basic. I can get the code here for this. Maybe you would you would take the code and put it into something else. But to be honest, I'm not actually getting, from a first experiment with Google Stitch, I'm not actually getting a huge amount of value out of this versus other tools. It kind of feels a bit of a half-baked product, to be honest. Maybe we can try one of the other examples here. So let's have a look at these just for context. So it's got a little dashboard here and it's giving an example of how you can use it. Let's make it simpler. Can you add the previous month summary view? I kind of did those style amends on this. Okay, that's what I was looking for here, see? Now you've got multiple screens here. So I'm working on a mobile app for my game. I'd like to have an application to have a calendar view. This has told it explicitly what pages to create, and then it's created them. But every time that I have tried to do that, it hasn't done it. I don't know why that is. It's got the screens that it's created here, obviously. Can you update the overall theme to dark green? That's cool. You can change the theme there. So you can actually go back between these versions when you're clicking on the design. Okay, so that wasn't actually clear to me earlier. That makes sense. He says update the theme to dark green, but if you see what this has done, it's completely changed the entire UX. Or it's moved all of those screens around for some reason. I don't know why it would have done that. So why is it making some of these decisions too much? Change it back to a light green. Okay. And then you can go through these, look at the individual screens. You can edit the theme. I don't know what that does. That's similar to what Polymet used to have, where you could change the UI theme, but it really kind of just got in the way and it didn't really add much to the experience. And if I go to the Alps skiing guide, we've got nothing here. If I click on that, I can see the multiple screens there. It's all these are fairly basic UI. What it's not been good at is creating a complex design for me. And what it's not been good at is making amends correctly from what I'm asking of it. So let's finish up with Google Stitch here, and I'll jump into my final thoughts and a few key insights that you can take away and whether you should use this product or not. So I have a really hard time recommending Google Stitch, and I think the reason for that is because it falls down in multiple areas compared to other similar tools. So if you think about tools like Lovable or Bolt or even Cursor or other AI IDEs, it just feels like a little bit unfinished and a little bit kind of like a toy rather than a professional kind of product that you might actually use for design or building an app or even prototyping or idea generation. Now, I haven't used Figma Make, so I don't know what Figma Make is like, but I'm hoping that Figma Make will be better than this and more similar to something like a Lovable. And so with that said, I want to get into a few key insights from Google Stitch and then answer the question whether or not you should use it, which I think you probably already know by now. My first key insight here is that you really need to have at least feature parity if you're going to launch an AI product into a space unless you have a really specific target user in mind, or you're doing it in a really unique way, or are differentiated enough in any kind of other aspects of the product. You need to at least have feature parity with what already exists in the market. The second key insight is that if you're building an AI product where the user is doing multiple amends in a row, you need to give users a really visible and clear way of returning to those checkpoints. Obviously, you could return to the checkpoints on Google Stitch, but it took me a while to figure it out, and it wasn't clear in the UI how to do that. There's not really a good onboarding or tutorial flow to kind of teach you those things. You can look at the examples, but you kind of just have to figure it out on your own, which is not a great experience, especially if you're a non-technical person and using this for the first time. And then the third key insight here is if you're building an AI creative tool, you need to have a really good model that is going to understand what the user might want to change and what they might not want to change, as well as picking up on when they're being really explicit about what things to create and also what not to change as well. You can see from like that complex web design example that it just kind of gave me a bit of a weird like garbled output. It removed content. When I did the app design example, it changed the navigation content even though I didn't ask it to. It just recreated the same screen over the one that I'd created previously. And the last insight here is really that you need to align your features for your product with the type of user who is going to be using that feature. So it feels weird in Google Stitch that the standard and quicker version, which might be more targeted at non-technical users, is the one where you can export it to Figma. And yet the experimental version, which may be more targeted at more complex users, designers or developers, you can't export it to Figma. And so that just feels like a disjointed experience based on what features are right for what users. So would I recommend using Google Stitch? I think the answer is no at this point. And that's not to say that there's not a lot of potential in this product, because I think it could stand alone against a lot of the other options out there. But really, it's just missing so many key features, and it's just not a fully kind of thought out product when you compare it to something like V0 or Lovable. I'd even rather just use Cursor or Windsurf, to be honest. And I found it frustrating trying to get the right output out of the tool, and it took quite a long time to get there as well. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and remember you can get all of my startup and product frameworks for free if you sign up to my newsletter over at buildgreatproducts.com. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.
Build great products. Build great products.